Hello there and welcome. It's been a while since the last episode. I've been busy with my full-time job, with my family life, but I really try to find some time to create more episodes. And it also takes time to develop them because all of the code here is something that I develop as I go. I don't have a complete project that I always show parts of. Each episode I develop the code from scratch. So this also takes some time, and then I need to record it and I need time to do all of these things. So that's why it takes some time. I really try to make these episodes as fast as I can. The good thing is that we are finally going to start working on a very important and big feature in this series. And it's probably going to be the most complex and longest feature that we're going to work on. And it's going to be the base building system, or just a construction system, right? We're going to be able to have different parts, foundations, walls, other parts, and we're going to be able to build houses. Now it's going to take some time to create all of these parts, to create this entire system, because it's a very big and complex system. But little by little, we're going to add more and more parts, more and more functionalities, and by the end of it, maybe it will take several episodes, we're going to have a building system. Now, before we start with the code, I also want to mention that there are a lot of different ways you can do it. There are a lot of different approaches. Some people, some games use a grid system that you can place your different building blocks on different grids, and it's a more generic system. You can use the same system in different games, but I'm going to go with a different approach. It will be a more freestyle building. If you know Grounded, the game about the bugs, so it's similar to that. You can actually place and build anywhere you want. It doesn't have to be inside some kind of grid. And then we simply check if this place is actually valid to be built. For example, we don't want to overlap something, or we don't want to craft on an object, right? So we are going to do all of these checks, but it doesn't have to be in some kind of grid. We can basically craft anywhere we want. So we're going to go with this approach. And as I told you, I wrote this code from scratch. Of course, I went to other places to look for inspiration, for ideas, but eventually I realized that we don't need some kind of generic script that is going to work with other games. We want to build something for this game. So as a preparation for this episode, I added a few things inside our game, but it's not something new. It's something that we already did. If we go to our canvas and inside our crafting screen, let's make it visible, I added another category, the construction category, and you already know how to do it. We did all of these categories. You simply add this UI and then you add it inside the crafting system script. So we already did all of this. And then if we close this screen and we open our construction category screen that I created, inside we can find two new blueprints, the foundation blueprint and the wall blueprint. Let's just make it bigger. So it will take 4 planks for the foundation and it will take 2 planks for the wall. Of course, these numbers are just something for this game. You can have your own requirements, you can have your own parts. And again, I'm just using some assets that I found for free, so it doesn't look the best, but I think that it's enough. So the first thing we're going to build is this foundation, and then when we completed the building system with the foundation, we're going to add more things. The wall, we're going to have doors, windows, and then it's really up to you which parts to add. Of course, each part will work a bit differently and we need to adjust the code differently, but some parts will be very identical. For example, the walls will be placed, so the door can be placed the same way. It will simply be a door that will be able to be opened and closed, and the window can be just a wall with a window inside of it. So there's nothing new to the actual code. It's just a different model, right? It's just a wall with a window. First of all, we are going to open our inventory item script. And the thing we want to work on now is to actually create this foundation. We want to be able to click on the item, and then this foundation is going to be instantiated into the world. So our inventory item script. Inside this script, we're actually handling all the items inside our inventory. So if we go over here on pointer down, we can see if it's a consumable, then we consume it. If it's equipable, then we equip it. So we want to add another option, and it will be if the item is actually usable. And by usable, it means that we want to instantiate it and build it into the world. So we're going to add two properties over here. The first one is going to be is usable, and the other one will be a game object to be used. Okay, so the same way we had this item pending for consumption, right? Because we wanted to store a reference for the item and only later we wanted to destroy it, not immediately. The same way we want to have a reference to this item because maybe we're going to decide to cancel the building of the item, right? So we want to have a reference for different uses. Now let's save this. And what we basically try to achieve is when we run our game and we click on the item inside our inventory, the item will pop and we're going to be required to select a location to place the item. Now I know that in most of these survival games, you have some kind of wheel menu that you select the different parts that you want to construct, and you can obviously do something like that. It will work almost the same way, just instead of clicking on this foundation inside the inventory, you're simply going to create this menu, and when you click on the item inside this circular menu, then it will instantiate it the same way. So you can do it if you want. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use the item straight from the inventory, but the code is basically the same. You just need to call it from a different location. So back inside our inventory item script, inside of this on pointer down, right? So when we click on an item inside the inventory, we're going to add another if. So if this item is usable, then the item pending to be used is the game object itself, right? The game object that we're clicking on, because this script is located on every item that is inside the inventory. And we want to call this method useItem. Now I don't know if this is a good name because we don't really want to use the item. We want to construct the item, right? But maybe inside the useItem, we're going to have different scenarios. For now, this is the only time we actually use an item, so we're going to name it useItem. Then we're going to create this method. So Alt Enter, generate method, and we have it over here. And before we actually create this method, let's go inside the on pointer up. And over here, we're going to add another if statement. So if is usable and item pending to be used is this item that we're clicking on, right? Because this method is called when we actually release the mouse. When we click is over here, but then when we release the clicking, then this will get called. So if we did this on this usable item and the item is actually our game object, then we're going to destroy immediate the game object. Inventory system instance recalculate list, right? Because we want to recalculate the new way the inventory looks right now because we destroyed the item from the inventory. And crafting system instance refresh needed items. So we usually run both of these methods when there is some kind of change inside our inventory, because we need to recalculate and refresh all the needed items so the crafting system knows all the new or the things that were removed, and the inventory system. Now let's create the use item method. And it's going to be a bit long, so I'm just going to type in the code and then I'm going to go over it with you. Okay, so what we did over here. First of all, when we use the item, we want to set all of the different screens to be invisible, right? Because when we want to place the item, we want all of the different inventory, crafting screens, all of them, we want them gone. So we're simply going to close all of these screens if they're opened, right? We don't know which one is opened. So when we activate this item, when we right click on it, then all of the different menus are going to get closed. Then we're going to lock the cursor because we basically are no longer inside a menu. We are in free mode, right? So we want to lock it. And then we also enable the selection, and we also enable the selection manager. Now there's this switch that simply checks which item we clicked on. And the reason we have both of these is because for testing, let's say for testing, we usually just drag the actual item into our inventory and then we can click on it. But if we actually craft it, then it's going to be named foundation clone. But when we just drag it for testing, it's not going to get this clone because it's not actually crafted. We simply dragged it over there. So it's going to get this foundation name. So for now, we're going to also use this one because maybe we're going to test it and we're going to drag it and get this foundation. So either way, if it's an item named foundation clone or foundation, we want to activate the construction. So we're going to run this method and we're going to simply instantiate the foundation model. Now we did not create a foundation model yet, and we haven't even created this construction manager. Okay, but that's something we're going to do next. And inside of this construction manager, we're going to have a method named activate construction placement. When we're going to add more different items to construct, then we're simply going to create another case over here. It's going to have a wall, right? So we're going to have a wall model, we're going to have a door model, a window model. So all of these are going to come over here. Now, we still don't want to create this wall, so we're going to leave both of these. And this is for testing, so in the future, we're going to delete this as well. So now we can save this file and we can return to our game. Now there's an error because we still did not create this construction manager, but that's fine. So inside this system folder, we're going to create a new game object and we're going to name it construction manager. And over here, because we're going to have several scripts that are related to the build system, we want to create a folder for these files because we don't want them to be with all the rest. So we're going to create a folder named build system, and inside we're going to create all the scripts that are related to the build system. So we're going to create a script named construction manager, and we're simply going to drag it on our construction manager object. Okay, now it says there's a problem, and that's because the error that we have over here, so we're going to just do it later, but this should have this script. Let's see if we can add it this way. So we're going to add it later, but it's basically just a system like all the rest of these systems. This script itself is going to be very long and very complicated, so we're not going to waste time on actually typing everything. I'm going to provide you this script and actually all the other scripts inside the description of this video, and you're simply going to paste them inside this file when you create it, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing. I just copied this entire script from Pastebin. So I'm going to open this construction manager and I'm going to paste the code over here. It's simply a singleton, right? Like all of our systems, we have this awake that we are creating the singleton in. And now because it's a singleton, we can go back over here and we can see that this construction manager is recognized and this method is recognized, and we simply pass in this foundation model string so it will know that we want to instantiate a foundation, right? And when we have a wall and other things, we want to instantiate the wall or the other things. So we're going to slowly go over this entire script and I'm going to explain to you everything. And we have a few other scripts that we want to create. So I'm going to explain them to you as well, because I don't want you to just copy the code. I want you to understand what is going on, because in the future, you're going to want to change things inside the code. So how will you know what to change and what to adjust if you don't understand the code, right? So we need two more scripts over here. So now we're going to paste all the code inside these scripts as well. You can find the code in the description. Okay, so now we can save this, we can go back over here, and now we should not see any errors. So now we can finally drag the construction manager on this construction manager object. And there are a lot of different properties we need to deal with, but we have this construction manager that is going to take care of this entire building system. So let's see what is going on inside this manager. First of all, as we said, it's going to be a singleton. Then we have this game object that is going to be a reference to the item that we want to construct. Then we have a Boolean in construction mode. So we're going to check if we're actually inside the construction mode. And we have this construction holding spot. So this spot will hold the item that we want to construct. And this spot will be on the actual player. So let's create this spot. We go to, let's close this. Let's go and double click on our player. So we basically want some kind of spot in front of the player that is going to hold the item that we want to construct, right? We want to see this item visually in front of us and then decide where to place it. So inside the player, we're going to create a new game object and we're going to name it construction holding spot, or even construction holder. Let's make it a capital C. And now we need to drag a reference to this construction holder inside the construction manager. So construction holding spot. So we're going to take this and drag it inside. Okay. Next, we have a few more Booleans that we're going to talk about when we get to them. So is valid placement. And if we're actually selecting a ghost, we have a selected ghost, and we're going to see what these ghosts are later. And now we have the different materials. So each time we select a ghost, we want to change its material. And it's basically some kind of representation of the item that we can construct, right? So usually in the survival games, when we want to construct something, we first see some kind of transparent or semi-transparent object. And usually it's red or green. If it's green, it means that we can build in the spot. If it's red, it means that we cannot build in the spot. So it's some kind of ghost, some kind of placeholder for the actual item. So this is what I called a ghost. Of course, you can name it whatever you want. So we have three different materials for these ghosts, right? We have when it's semi-transparent, we have it when it's fully transparent, and we have it when it's actually selected. Now the semi-transparent is something that we use mainly for testing because we want to be able to see the actual object and not use this full transparent and then we don't even know where the item is, right? So for debug, for testing, we're going to use it as a semi-transparent, but when we're actually done building this system, we're going to change it to the full transparent because this is the way it should be, right? We are not supposed to actually see these ghosts. So for testing, and we want to create these three materials. So we save this, we go back over here, we go into our materials, and I have this construction folder and actually created these materials. So we have this fully invisible material, and the changes that you need to do is simply go over here and change it to be transparent, and then inside of this base map you should use a 0 value for the alpha, and it will make this material transparent. Now we also have an invisible barely, but it's the semi-invisible. We are going to do the same transparent, but over here we're going to set the alpha at about 76, 70, it doesn't matter. So we can barely see this material, but we can still see it, okay? So it will be some kind of ghost. Now for the third material, this ghost selected material, we're going to use this foundation green, okay? So we have a few more materials that we're going to see later, but we're going to use this green foundation for the selected ghost and also for the selected foundation, okay? So we're going to use it in a few different places. So these three are basically just the default foundation, the foundation green, and the foundation red. So the green is when you can build the foundation or any other item. When we cannot construct it, right? Maybe it's overlapping a tree, maybe it's overlapping some rocks. And we have the default foundation, so this is how the actual foundation is going to look. And we're going to change all of these materials while we run the code, right? Programmatically. So the foundation, you can see all the different settings. We have a base map of this wooden something, okay? I'm going to add this file into description as well. I know that in your game you're going to have other assets, other art styles, but just if you want to follow along, I'm going to provide you with this asset, okay? So you're going to place it inside the base map, and the color I'm using is this beige value of a color. It's just going to give it some kind of beigey look. Then I'm also going to provide you a file for the normal map, okay? So you can find this weathered planks 4K. So it's going to give it a look, like a wooden look with these planks. So you're going to place this normal map over here, and then we have this occlusion map that I'm also going to provide to you, and you're going to place it over here. So let's go back to the materials, and I also changed the tiling a bit because this texture, this base map needs a bit of an offset, and we need to change the tiling a bit so it will look good, okay? So just copy all of these settings. Now the foundation green will be almost the same. It will have the same maps, so you can basically just duplicate this foundation, but we're going to change the emission map. We're going to set it to be enabled, and we're going to change it to this green, this shiny green color, okay? So these are the values. And for the red, it's the same, so you can duplicate it and just change the emission to be this 250 red, okay? So we want to take these materials and drag them inside the construction manager. So over here inside the ghost selected matte, we're going to drag this green one. Inside the ghost semi-transparent, we're going to drag this invisible barely. And inside the full transparent, we're going to drag this invisible. Now the two other ones, we're going to use them when we actually talk about the actual constructible. Okay, this is just the manager and it doesn't need these materials. So after we talked about these materials, we also have a list for all the ghosts in existence, and it's something we're going to talk about later. So basically when we create when we instantiate, for example, a foundation, it's going to have a few ghosts, and we want to keep track of all the ghosts in existence so we can later delete all of them, because we don't want these game objects to just be created over and over and then our game will suffer from the performance, right? So we want to keep track of them and later delete them if needed. Now we're going to go over all of these methods, but it's going to happen in the next episode, and I know that up until now in this series I had longer episodes and each episode kind of covered a topic, but I really want to make my episodes shorter. So in the next episode, we're going to continue where we left off. We're going to continue learning about this activate construction placement, and we're going to finally instantiate our foundation and place it inside the world. And then we're going to take care of all the other things. And as I told you, it's a big system and it's going to take us a few episodes to complete it. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe so you can know when I release the next episode, and it's going to be very soon. And leave a like if you enjoyed this video. So see you next time.